Goat versus fish. In the beginning, there was goat versus fish, the GoatVsFish. And Goat versus Fish said that there should be goat and that there should be fish. There is no alpha or omega. There is no black or white. There is no good or evil. There is only goat and fish. And goat versus fish. Welcome to the Goat vs. Fish podcast, recorded at the world-famous Comedy Store in Los Angeles, a place of Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish speaks to you now, speaks to all of you now. You are part of Goat vs. Fish, forever Goat vs. Fish, and Goat vs. Fish is a part of you. You have many questions, yes? Who is Goat vs. Fish? What is Goat vs. Fish? Why is Goat vs. Fish? But there is only one question. Are you goat or are you fish? Ponder it now. This is Goat vs. Fish. Today, Goat vs. Fish speaks to a one. Goat vs. Fish and this one have enjoyed several verses before, yes? On the first verses it was called Stupid Cupid, yes? This one did choose Goat vs. Fish to go on a date, as the ones call it. This one grabbed Goat vs. Fish and pulled Goat vs. Fish out of the side. And then, well, it was very exciting for Goat vs. Fish, but that was the end of that verses, yes? That was the end of the verses. Then Goat vs. Fish had another verses with this one that was called a date, but on this one, that was on the Goat vs. Fish podcast. Yes, what an excellent place for a verses that we call a date, yes? We could not hear this one. We could not hear this one, and if you cannot hear this one, then you cannot hear the word of Goat vs. Fish. So here we are again. A reverse, if you wish to call it that, yes? It is another date, perhaps, as the ones call it. Let us see if it is. Now, Goat vs. Fish wants this one to know that even though the last verses was not sent out to all the ones to hear, that this one is very special to Goat vs. Fish, very special to Goat vs. Fish. What is the name of this one?
Pallavi Gunalan.
Tell us all about this one. Goat vs. Fish never tires of hearing about this one.
That's so sweet.
Yes.
I'm a comedian. I live in LA. I met Goat vs. Fish in the comedy scene, and we did do the Stupid Cupid thing, and we did record a podcast, and we've talked outside of that. I'm also in school right now. I'm getting my PhD in biomedical engineering at USC.
Biomedical engineering. Yes, Goat vs. Fish has looked at this one's on the Book of Faces. Yes, has looked at this one on the Book of Faces and has seen biomedical engineering. Yes, Goat vs. Fish was going to ask you about biomedical engineering later in the verses, but Goat vs. Fish will ask you now since you have mentioned it, yes? What is biomedical engineering? Is it a goat or a fish? Is it a way that the goat and fish can versus one another?
I guess you could look at it as a way the goat and fish versus one another.
Yes, then Goat vs. Fish will look at it that way. Yes, tell us about it.
Because it's a field of engineering that basically tries to apply its problem-solving skill set to anything related to the healthcare field. So it can range from computational stuff, where we work on computers, to actually going into the lab and working with cells, as long as it's has something to do with helping people's quality of life. So that's what that is.
And are you a goat or a fish?
So last time I said I was a goat.
Ah, you were a goat. Yes, you were a goat. This one was a goat. Yes, so pleased you are a goat.
I don't know if I still am. I just feel like why do you make people choose?
Goat versus fish does not make anyone choose between goat and fish.
Then you call them fence sitters.
Well, yes, if you do not choose goat or fish, then you are a fence sitter.
Is a fence sitter bad?
A fence sitter has not chosen goat or fish, and this displeases goat versus fish, yes.
Why do you need to make people choose?
Goat versus fish does not make anyone choose. The question is, are you goat or fish? Because in the beginning there was goat versus fish, and goat versus fish said that there should be goat and that there should be fish, yes.
So why does it displease you when they're fence sitters? What about it upsets you?
Because when a goat is a goat and a fish is a fish, they are so pleased to be a goat and a fish. Goat versus fish has seen so many goat that say, I am a goat, and then they say, oh, I am so happy that I am a goat. And so many fish that are so pleased to be a fish. But so many fence sitters, they seem so displeased, so angry. So uncertain. Yes, they do not seem as pleased as the ones who choose goat or fish.
I feel like if you fence sit, you can get both aspects of goat and fish. You
think so? You think a fence sitter has aspects of both goat and fish? Well, goat versus fish was hoping that this date would be going well, but it seems that this one is now speaking for the fence sitter. Goat versus fish was just speaking to a fence sitter the other verses, yes, and that fence sitter was not pleasant to goat versus fish, not pleasant to goat versus fish at all.
Am I not pleasant to goat versus fish?
Goat versus fish finds you very pleasant. Even as this one sits on the fence, goat versus fish cannot help but find it very pleasant. But are you a fence sitter? Are you a fence sitter? Do you tell that to goat versus fish now?
Yeah, I think I am now. I think I've learned too much. I think I know that there's no way to pick one or the other. And I, as someone who does comedy and engineering, I tend to sit on fences and participate in many verses.
Fence sitters. Fence sitters. Fence sitters. You are a fence sitter. You are a fence sitter. Goat versus fish is not pleased by this. Not pleased like this. But there is no reason. There is no reason that we cannot still have a pleasant verses. Even with the fence sitter. Goat versus fish will try to have pleasant verses with this fence sitter, yes.
Okay. That sounds good. Maybe it'll convince you that fence sitters aren't displeasing.
Goat versus fish does not think so, but goat versus fish will try to keep an open goat versus fish about it, yes, about this versus, yes. Now, goat versus fish was thinking how to have a date, yes, goat versus fish does not understand how the ones do this thing that they call a date that is a versus, yes. But what of you, what of this fence sitter, yes? How would you describe your ideal versus?
You get to know the person, you connect, you figure out, I guess, things about them, like if they're goat versus goat or fish or fence sitters. So we've already done that. So that's pretty good. And then usually there's some sort of activity or something you can bond over and experience maybe.
Like choosing goat or fish or having a versus.
Yeah, having a versus. That would be the activity.
Yes.
In this case.
How shall we versus? How shall we have a little versus of our own, yes?
A little versus? I don't know. Do you have any ideas of how to do? I feel like we're a little constrained right now, but I think
yes, you have not chosen goat or fish, yes.
But I think I don't know. Like us conversing is a pretty good start.
Yes, it is. And goat versus fish wants to know before we carry on with this versus any further, as you are a fence sitter, yes. Goat versus fish is wondering if you even really want to spend this versus with goat versus fish.
Of course. I love getting to know goat versus fish.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
You do. You speak of love.
Oh.
You speak of love. You love to get to know goat versus fish. Yes, goat versus fish has heard this word. Yes, some call it the day of the Valentine. Goat versus fish has heard, yes.
Ooh, yes.
Has heard much discussion about this love, yes. Usually one says, I love goat versus fish, and goat versus fish says, goat versus fish loves you, yes. Goat versus fish returns the love, but goat versus fish has been pondering it. What is love? What is love? Is it goat or fish or some kind of versus? What is love?
I'd say it's a versus because it's an exchange between goat or fish or goat and fish. And it's an affection and a caring and an investment in someone emotionally and mentally and sometimes physically.
Physically, yes. A versus of strength, yes?
Sometimes it feels like that. Yep.
Yes, it can be. And is it always between a goat and a fish? Is it always between
No.
a goat and a fish, or can
Listen.
it be between two goats or two
Love-
fish? This love versus,
Love
as you
knows
call it.
no boundaries. It can be two goats or two fish, or a fish that feels like they've been a goat the whole time, or vice versa.
Ah, yes,
or
there are
between-
fish and goats that are like this. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Goat versus fish wants them to choose goat or fish if they wish to be a goat or fish, of course. Yes.
Sometimes it's hard, though, for people to choose goat or fish when they don't know what they are. It takes a while.
Yes, it
But
does.
I think
yes, it does.
every goat and fish
You
in
see how it
combination.
speaks of itself, and yet it does not even know. Continue. Yes.
I think every goat or fish combination or permutation, they all deserve love. I think they all should be able to participate in it.
Ah, they all deserve this love. Yes, they all deserve this versus. Yes, and they all deserve goat versus fish. Yes, so goat versus fish will give this love. Will give this love to anyone that wishes it. Goat versus fish will love you if you wish to be loved by goat versus fish.
Aw, that's sweet. I love being loved by people. I would say that's fair. And goat versus fish
And goat versus fish, yes.
as well.
Can a fence sitter love? Can a fence sitter truly love in the way of a goat or a fish?
I think so. I love people, and yeah, I love people, and I feel like a fence sitter. I think it's hard to, if you're fence sitting about love, that's difficult, right? If you're trying to pick between loving someone and not, that's difficult.
Ah, describe this versus. Yes, goat versus fish wants to hear of this versus. Do you have experience with this versus? Yes.
Yeah, I do, and there are a lot of bad ones.
Ah, goat versus fish likes to hear about all the verses. Yes.
Yeah, I think I've had certain experiences where I learned a lot, and both people walked away and it was okay. But I have had experiences where, people hurt each other and they didn't know if they loved each other, and there was a lot of emotion and time invested, and it didn't work out. But hopefully at the end of it, you get to be a better person, and you grow from it and stuff. So in the end, even if they didn't love you, you can always love yourself.
Ah, you can love oneself. Goat versus fish thought that love was between a goat and a fish, but now you say a goat or a fish can love itself. It can versus itself with this love versus.
Yeah, I've been loving myself a lot this year.
And is that physical? Is that a physical versus or a mental versus?
Initially, I was saying mental, but then this last comment, I meant physical, so.
And of true love. Goat versus fish has mentioned true love because goat versus fish has heard it from the others. Is true love any different from the verses of love, the true love? We have heard of true fish, we have heard of the true goat, yes, and even the true fence sitter. But what of true love? Yes, is that a versus that is like love, or is it different? Is it different from
I don't know if I distinguish a true love from any other kind of love. I do think that people work hard at love, and that the ones that work the hardest and are able to sustain it, that might be considered true love, in that they keep coming back to each other. But there's also ones that are toxic or, other things. But I don't know. I don't know I think it's just a range. It's a range from emotions you feel towards people that can range from hatred to what you would call true love, I guess.
It almost sounds like goat versus fish. It almost sounds like goat versus fish, how some struggle with it. Yes, some accept it readily. Yes,
Yeah.
Some seek it. Some try to avoid it. Yes, some are pleased. Some are angered. Yes, perhaps this love, perhaps goat versus fish can give this love. Perhaps it is goat versus fish.
Yeah.
All things are part of goat versus fish.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the people in between could be considered fence sitters.
And you speak of people, the ones who are goat or fish?
Yes.
Yes, the goat or fish, yes. And what of sex? What of sex? What is sex? So many talk to goat versus fish about sex. Goat versus fish has not had experience with this sex, or at least does not think so, no. So what is sex? Is it goat or fish? Is it a versus?
I definitely don't want to advocate for people to have sex with goat or fish. So that's a disclaimer.
Yes, but we are not speaking of these people, as you call it. We speak of goat and fish.
We speak of it in terms of goat and fish.
Yes, one who is a goat, one who is a fish, yes.
I think any sex between what we shall now call goat and fish should be consensual and fun and enjoyed by both parties.
And what is consensual? What is this?
Both goat and or fish agree to it wholeheartedly and enthusiastically.
Well, a goat is versus a fish, and a fish is versus a goat. It is goat versus fish. Does that not mean that they are not always versus?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
A goat is a goat and a fish is a fish, yes?
Sure.
A goat is versus the fish is versus the goat, yes?
Yes.
So if there is this versus that the ones do call sex, why should the goat and the fish not simply versus at all times or whenever they wish? But you speak of this thing that is called consent. Goat versus fish does not understand it yet. Explain it to goat versus fish.
Because you don't want the goat or the fish to get hurt or feel bad. So we want it to be consensual and happy, and that's why you have to make. They could be versing or fucking all the time, but it's got to be.
Yes, goat versus fish has heard this fucking as well. Yes, has heard this word before. Yes, sometimes about sex, sometimes about things that don't seem to be sex. Goat versus fish does not quite understand the ones in all these ways.
It's a pretty good versatile word, but it's definitely context dependent.
But cannot a goat or a fish simply expect that the fish or the goat is always willing to versus because it is goat versus fish? Why can a goat or fish not expect this?
They can't expect it because you're not the other goat or fish.
No, you are your own goat or fish.
Right. So you can't read the other goat or fish's mind. And that other goat or fish should be able to change their minds whenever they want.
And choose not to versus?
Yes.
And instead form the unity of the goatfish. They could form the unity instead of a versus, yes?
That I'm assuming is another possibility, but it should also be consensual.
Yes. Well, goat versus fish has seen that some goat do not want to versus the fish, and those same goat do not even want to form the unity of the goatfish. Now, goat versus fish does not understand these goat and fish, but if a goat does not want to versus a fish, it is still versus the fish. But if it does not want to versus the fish, then goat versus fish will not make the goat versus the fish, yes?
Yeah, that's good. That's basically...
And the same is for fish. Goat versus fish is speaking to the goat and the fish, yes.
True.
So are these love and these sex one and the same? Are they one and the same? We speak of it as if it is two different things, as if they are goat and fish, but perhaps they are one and the same, yes? Are they love and sex, yes?
I think they can be contained in the same space. I do think that sometimes there's sex without love and love without sex. But I think ideally, like, a lot of people would prefer to have sex with love involved.
It makes a better versus?
I think so. I think it's more fun.
It is more fun. Yes. Well, goat versus fish wants all to have fun. With goat versus fish.
But some people are like happy just having sex without love, and they should be able to do that too.
And you are a fence sitter, yes?
And in this,
you have said you are a fence sitter, yes?
Oh yeah.
Now, have you had sex with one who is a goat or a fish?
Have I had sex in general?
With one who is a goat or a fish, yes.
I guess.
Yes, and how was sex with a goat different from sex with a fish?
I'm very confused about this.
Well, it seems that this versus that you call sex, sometimes it is as one,
mm-hmm.
but other times it is with another, yes?
Yes.
Yes, and others, yes, the other ones, they are goat or fish. All things are goat or fish.
Okay.
So if you have been with another one in this love-sex way, versus, then how is love and sex with a fish different from love and sex with a goat?
So I haven't had love and sex with both a fish and a goat.
At once?
Not at once, for sure.
That would be a mighty versus. That would be a very mighty versus.
That'd be a hella dope versus, I think. I think it would be super fun for everyone involved. But I guess I don't know who we're considering goat or fish here, but I've had sex with one of them.
You have had sex with one that is a goat or a fish. Yes, that is very goat versus fish.
I've had sex with multiple people, but either a goat or a fish, depending on how they're defined.
Yes. Well, one says if it is a goat or a fish. Not this one. This one has not said if it is
None
a
of
goat
them
or
have.
a fish.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know.
It doesn't know. It is a fence sitter. Of course, it doesn't know. Goat versus fish is sorry. Goat versus fish apologizes. Goat versus fish should not speak to this fence sitter in that way. This one is here to see goat versus fish again. Goat versus fish apologizes to this one. Yes.
Generally, when you have to apologize on dates, it's not going very well.
And is this date not going very well? Is that what this one is saying?
I think I'm having fun, but I think, I don't know. How do you feel?
Goat versus fish feels uncertain about this one, yes?
Yeah,
so
same.
Willing to speak with goat versus fish, but so committed to sitting on the fence. But was a goat once? Goat versus fish remembers when this one was a goat.
Yeah, I was
Remembers when this one was a goat. Oh, goat versus fish was so pleased when this one was a goat. But this one has changed. This one has changed and it has become a fence sitter.
Yeah.
How could you do this to goat versus fish? How could you do this to goat versus fish?
That happens in relationships, man. People change, goats change, fish change, fence sitters change. And the verses changes, and you just got to see if you can adjust with that and continue, or if it's a deal breaker.
Let us continue. Let us continue. Let us not break the deal, as this fence-sitter says in such a fence-sitterly way. Yes, the party of moms. Let us stop talking about love and sex, and let us talk about moms. Yes, shall we talk about moms?
Sure.
Yes. There is a goat. There is a goat that this one does know. Yes, that has seen this fence-sitter with that the ones call Andrea Guzetta. Yes, they call it that one.
Yeah, Andrea Guzetta.
GoatVsFish just understood. Yes, GoatVsFish had forgotten what they call this one, but remembered the what they call the other goat. Yes, does this offend this one? Does this make this fence-sitter feel offended?
I'm not offended.
Ah, yes. Well, then let us continue. Yes. GoatVsFish. Yes, tell us about the party of moms. Yes.
Mom Party is hosted by myself and Andrea Guzetta on Wednesday nights at 11:30 p.m. at Next Stage Theater. We have a Facebook.com/mompartycomedy, and we put up a slotted list for people to sign up on at 6 p.m., and we book a few people for longer spots, and then other people can come by and throw their name in the rolling early and late buckets at 11:30 on Wednesdays, every Wednesday.
You seem very familiar with this party of moms. Yes, this one knows how to say it. Knows how to say it, yes.
Yeah, I've had to plug it a few times, and it's really fun. We bring snacks and drinks and stuff. And
things to consume.
Yeah, things to consume, make people feel good. We had a Christmas version where we gave everybody a present. We're going to have a fun one for Valentines Day. There are going to be surprises there. So we try to make it a fun community that people can always feel comfortable coming back to.
Oh, you speak of Christmas. Yes, GoatVsFish has heard of this Christmas. Yes, GoatVsFish, of course, speaks of goatfish. Yes, the verses of the goatfish, the unity of goat and fish. Yes. One said that Jesus was a fish. Do you agree with that fish that said Jesus was a fish, as we are speaking of Christmas?
I'm not very religious, but I've seen that on the back of cars a lot. So I guess that's a thing.
It is an evidence. It is an evidence, yes.
Sure.
GoatVsFish is curious about moms because there was one that was called Who Linkle. Yes, Who Linkle. No, it was Lou Hinkle. Yes, and it was a fence-sitter. Oh, it was a fence-sitter. How that one sat on the fence. How that one spoke to GoatVsFish. And this fence-sitter that they did call Lou Hinkle, yes, did ask GoatVsFish, what happened when GoatVsFish came from its mom's pussy, it did say. It did say this to GoatVsFish. GoatVsFish did not understand at first, yes. But then the fence-sitter did say that GoatVsFish is a pussy, yes. And so it was that GoatVsFish comes from GoatVsFish, and this is so, yes. But GoatVsFish still does not quite understand it, yes. So what is a mom, yes, what is a pussy, and how are they part of GoatVsFish?
Okay, so a mom is someone that cares for, raises, has a child that is its offspring.
A tiny one.
A tiny one that becomes big over time.
Yes, and chooses goat or fish, yes.
Sure. Or sometimes as a fence-sitter.
Sometimes, yes.
A pussy can be used multiple ways, but it's generally the genitalia of a gender of people that usually include moms. This is all very confusing in this day and age.
It is very confusing to GoatVsFish, yes.
Yeah.
Genitalia, pussy,
I don't think
moms, yes, GoatVsFish.
That it's confusing. I just think it's hard for me to explain. And then,
yes.
But then pussy can also mean something weak, which doesn't make any sense because pussies are dope. So I don't know.
Pussies are dope.
Yeah, physical pussies, they're amazing.
Physical, yes. You have spoken of this physical, yes, when you spoke of the love and the sex, yes. Mom's pussy, love, sex. They all seem to be connected to one another. Is this so? Is it so? Is it all part of the same verses?
Probably. I mean, moms have love for their kids generally, and they become moms by having sex with people, which can involve love, and they usually have sex with their pussies. So
do you have a mom? Do you have a mom?
I do have a mom, and she's probably not going to like listening to this.
She does not like to hear the word of GoatVsFish.
I think she does not like to hear many words coming out of my mouth.
This one does not like to hear you speak, no?
Sometimes I feel that way, but I think it's also the content of my language, which I think is true for many mothers. It's hard to see their offspring say things that they don't feel comfortable with.
Yes. Would this one be displeased that you have said you are a fence-sitter?
I don't think so.
What would your mom say? What would your mom say if your mom heard that you were a fence sitter?
I think she wouldn't understand at all what's happening.
Yes, goat versus
100%.
fish can scarcely understand it at all, how a goat would choose to sit on the fence, yes. And
aren't goats like really good at climbing? So like fence sitting is easy for goats.
yes. It almost sounds like you are a fish, taunting the goat, saying how easy it is for them to climb upon the fence. Yes, are you sure you're not a fish?
But I feel like that's a strength for a goat.
You say it is a strength for a goat to climb upon the fence?
Yes.
Fence sitters. Do you party with this mom?
Not my mom. I mean, sometimes I have partied with my mom. But it's at like weddings and family events and stuff. But not like I party with my peers.
So your peers are moms. Goat versus Fish has looked at this mom party and has seen many top moms, as you call it. It seems that there are so many moms in this place. Yes, is it so? Do you have so many moms in this place?
We have a combination of moms and kids. We feel like people who come there to sign up to do the mic, they're like our kids. We take care of them. We provide them snacks and drinks. But the ones that we book for longer spots, we call our top moms because they're very funny and we think that they deserve longer sets.
And do these top moms have a pussy, as it was called, a genitalia? Yes.
I'm assuming everyone that we've booked so far has genitalia at least. Many of them have talked about it. Many of them have described the size of their genitalia.
Oh, is that so?
Mm-hmm. That seems to be a common topic.
And is that relevant to the verses? Is that relevant to the verses of love and sex? The
Probably.
size of the genitalia?
Yes.
That is either goat or fish?
But it's also the motion of the genitalia that matters.
Yes, it is the way. It is the way. Goat versus Fish has found that when a goat versus a fish, sometimes the fish can be larger than the goat, but if it does not move about in a way that could help it to triumph in the verses, then the goat can still triumph, yes?
Yeah, so maybe we shouldn't look at sex as one versus the other, because hopefully both of them can triumph.
Both can triumph. You say that a goat and a fish can both triumph in the same verses.
In sex, yeah, we have to have a much longer conversation, maybe with some whiteboards about this.
Well, perhaps there will be another time.
pictures.
Perhaps there will be another time. Goat versus Fish. Even though this one is a fence sitter, Goat versus Fish just finds it so intriguing. The way it won't choose goat or fish. Goat versus Fish just so wants it to choose goat or fish. Yes, cannot help but continue to speak to this one. It is goat versus fish. Yes, it is goat versus fish. Will simply say it is goat versus fish. Even as goat versus fish speaks to a fence sitter, it feels like goat versus fish. It feels like goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. Facial recognition comedy. Yes, this seems to be another verses that this fence sitter is associated with. Yes. Tell us of facial recognition comedy.
Facial recognition comedy started as a meme created by Fizza Dasani, who's another Indian American female stand-up comic who's super fun and funny. And she created this meme because a lot of people in the comedy community in LA kept mixing up all of the Desi or South Asian stand-up female comedians, even though most of us don't look at all alike and are very different sizes and have very different energies.
So there were some who were goat that others thought were fish? They thought you were all goat. They thought you were all goat because this one was a goat?
Sure. I guess, yeah, they thought that, like I would get confused for Fizza or Zara, which is crazy because she's like a tiny little lady.
Do you mean to say that at the end of this facial recognition comedy that we can look at all the ones that do appear the same and yet we know if each one is a goat or a fish or perhaps a fence sitter? Is that what it is? Is that what it is?
I think that's the idea, is to get to know
that is
better.
A pleasant idea, if that is an idea, if that is a versus. Yes, goat versus fish is pleased by it, yes.
It was pretty fun. At one of them came up, one of the audience members came up before the show and came up to me and was like, is Supna performing? And I was like, Supna. And he goes, Supna Agarwal? And I was like, oh, Subha Agarwal. Yeah, she'll be performing.
You are speaking of things that Goat versus Fish does not understand.
It's just a fun anecdote. But and I was like, oh, you mean Subha Agarwal? And he was like, yeah, is she performing? Are you her? And I was like, no, I'm not her, but she will be performing. And then he went up to Zara immediately and was like, are you Supna? So before he couldn't tell the difference, but then afterwards I saw him speaking to the actual Subha Agarwal. And so I think it may make a difference, and people may know we're individuals and we support each other and we're not each other's competition and we have fun doing comedy together.
It sounds like a great unity of goat and fish, yes.
It is. It's dope.
Take a listening from this one. Take a listening from this one. Yes, you can have a verses. You can have a verses where you can find out who is a goat. You can find out who is a fish. You can have a verses. You can have a unity. Yes, it is a mighty verses.
Yeah.
Goat versus fish will now ask this one. Of course, we do not expect much from this one in the ways of what is a goat or a fish because it is a fence sitter. But then again, perhaps from the fence, you can see the goat and the fish. You can see the goat and the fish. Cupid, is it goat or fish? Cupid, is it goat or fish?
Maybe it's a goat?
Maybe it is a goat. A Valentine, goat or fish. Goat versus fish has seen the ones, yes. Usually the small ones, they do give these things to one another, yes, and they do call it a Valentine. Yes, is it a goat or a fish? Is it a winter versus?
I have an instinct that it's a fish.
Ah, a fish, yes. Breath mints, goat or fish.
Ooh, that's gotta be it. Ooh, those goats have bad breath, but fish smell like fish. Probably, it might be a versus.
Ah, it is a versus. It is a way for them to versus, yes.
Yeah.
Hearts, goat or fish.
That's the unity of goatfish.
Ah, heart is the unity of a goat and a fish. It is the goatfish, yes.
Yeah.
Chocolate, goat or fish.
That's the unity of goatfish.
Ah, that is the goatfish. Chocolate is the goatfish, yes.
100%.
Trust and communication, which is goat and which is fish.
These all seem critical for both. So I just got to go with the unity thing again.
Oh, yes, the trust and the communication, goat versus fish, suspected that they form the unity of the goatfish. But which is goat and which is fish?
I think trust is less visible, so I think it would be a fish because that's underwater. And communication has to be more obvious and out there, so I think that'd be the goat.
Ah, you have heard it. You have heard it, yes. Diamonds, goat or fish?
I don't care about diamonds. Diamonds are dumb.
But is it goat or fish?
I think it's neither. I don't think it's a goat or a fish.
So it is a fence sitter.
I don't
Is
think
it as
it's a
this one? Does
fence-sitter.
that mean that this one does not care about itself? Is that what this one is saying?
I think at the end of every podcast, I figure out that that's the lesson I learned throughout the podcast.
It is a fence-sitterly lesson. It is a fence-sitterly lesson, yes. Diamonds you have said you do not care for, yes, but what of blood diamonds? Goat versus fish has heard of blood diamonds. Are they different from diamonds?
I don't know if they're okay. Blood diamonds are basically diamonds that came at the expense of human lives and their quality of life because of the way the diamond industry works. But that's why I don't like any diamonds in general. I don't want to. I guess I have an iPhone, so maybe I don't care about people's lives.
Yes, sitting on the fence as always. Yes.
Hello, it's me, the fence sitter, your friendly neighborhood fence sitter. What's up? I can see into all your backyards. Hey, everybody! I like sitting on the fence. And I don't like diamonds.
And it was written that this is the word of the fence sitter, yes?
Yes, hello.
Kisses, goat or fish?
Goat and fish.
Candle, goat and fish. The unity of a goat and a fish?
Yeah, okay.
The unity of a goat and a fish. Candlelit dinners, goat or fish?
Why does it matter?
Goat versus fish does not know. Goat versus fish knows it matters because it is part of goat versus fish.
Do you ever assign goat and fish to people?
Goat versus fish does not ever say if one is a goat or a fish. It is for one to say for itself if it is a goat or a fish.
So you're a fence sitter on people. Fence sitter. Sitting up high on the fence with me. We're walking around the fence looking at people's backyards. Stuff.
This is not the first time that Goat versus Fish has been accused of being a fence sitter, but Goat versus Fish has found that it is always the fence sitters that accuse Goat versus Fish of being a fence sitter, yes? Isn't that just so fence sitterly of the fence sitter?
Maybe it's because we think outside the box because we're sitting on the fence and we're up on the top.
Goat versus Fish does not know if a box is a goat or a fish. Marriage, goat or fish?
Ugh. I don't like it.
Oh, you do not wish to ponder it.
No, yeah.
It does not wish to ponder it, yes.
I don't like the idea of marriage. The only upsides to that are for taxes and emergency medical purposes.
Pregnancy, goat or fish?
That's terrifying.
Unwanted pregnancy, goat or fish?
That's even more terrifying. I didn't know there was a difference. Oh, there is. Okay. Maybe it's just me and my friends who all understand pregnancy as unwanted pregnancy.
Ah, yes. Goat versus Fish has been looking at the ones, and has found that after this pregnancy, which you have not yet said if it is goat or fish, that sometimes there is a what the ones call a lack of sleep and a loss of libido. Yes, are these goat or fish? Which one is goat and which one is fish between sleep and libido?
It's definitely the unity of goat and fish.
Ah,
because they all cause it, because they're all children of goat or fish.
Well, we do not want the loss or the lack of goat fish. We do not want it. We do not want it.
Nope.
Dildos, goat or fish.
Yo, those are fun. I think it's, you know what? It's it's definitely one or the other.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes.
In the context of what we were talking about with like love and sex, but I just still don't know.
Is it the same with fleshlights? Goat versus fish has heard of this as well.
I heard those can get real stinky. So
some have said that the goat are stinky. Yes.
Yeah, but fish smell like fish.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And if we're talking about fish being fish, then I guess that's what a fleshlight's trying to recreate. So.
Oh, the fleshlight tries to create fish. Goat versus fish would like to meet one that likes to make more fish. Goat versus fish has also heard that this one that is called Jesus did make many fish. Perhaps Jesus is a fleshlight. Perhaps they are both fish. Perhaps they are both fish. Cheating, goat or fish.
Ooh, that's the unity of goat and fish.
That is also the unity of goat and fish. Well, the more unity, the better.
Do it. They both cheat.
Goat and fish both cheat, yes?
Goat and fish both cheat. Although it's very trash behavior, and maybe the goat eats the trash, so maybe the trash is the fish. I don't know. Or it could be the goat.
Fence sitters, do they cheat as well?
Everybody cheats.
Cheating, yes. All the ones cheat, this one has said.
Every type of thing can cheat, is capable of cheating, but doesn't have to.
What of divorce? Yes, divorce. It sounds like verses. Is it a verses?
It's a verses.
Ah, yes. And who triumphs in this verses?
Really, whoever gets to keep the dog.
And is a dog a goat or a fish?
Ooh, a dog has to pick for itself.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Family. That's goat or fish?
Unity of goat and fish.
Unity of a goat and a fish?
Yeah, for sure.
Happily ever after.
Verses.
Verses, that is the verses. Yes, more verses. Forever, forever, forever verses. Forever goat versus fish, yes.
Yes.
Goat versus fish has one more question. One more question for this one.
Yes.
It has been one that goat versus fish has been pondering for a long time now and simply must ask it. Yes, must ask it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like goat versus fish?
Oh, I do like goat versus fish.
Oh, you do like goat versus fish?
Yeah. You're asking the hard question.
Is it a difficult question to answer, do you like goat versus fish?
No. I mean, I would say you ask the hard questions like interviewers do, but you really just ask one question. You ask if things are goat or fish.
Yes, there is only one question.
Yeah.
Are you goat or are you fish?
Right, that is the question. So I like that you're curious about people.
Yes, goat versus fish is very curious about this one. Now, goat versus fish will give you one more chance to choose goat or fish. Are you goat or fish?
I can't choose.
It is a fence sitter. It is a fence sitter. But thank you for being part of goat versus fish. Thank you for being part of goat versus fish.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, always thank goat versus fish. Always thank goat versus fish. And where can the ones find this one? If they wish to communicate with this one, to agree or to disagree with this one.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and my handle is Pallavi Gunalan, which is spelled PALLAVIGUNALAN. Yeah, that's where you can find me. I have a website. That's the same thing, PallaviGunalan.com. So you can find me in my shows and things. I got facial recognition. I got Mom Party. Got lots of things going on.
The time has come, goat, fish, and fence sitter alike, to celebrate goat versus fish. There are many ways to celebrate, but today we sing a song of goat versus fish. Let us sing a song of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish, 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 goat versus fish. 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 Thank you for joining Goat vs. Fish. You have heard the word of Goat vs. Fish. And if you, one who listens, has a celebration of Goat vs. Fish, do send it. Send it to Goat vs. Fish. Send it to goatvsfish@gmail.com. Send your celebration. Send your questions. Many questions for Goat vs. Fish. And Goat vs. Fish may answer them or celebrate with them on the Goat vs. Fish podcast. Follow Goat vs. Fish on all social media, on the Instagram, on the Book of Faces, on the Twitterver, all at Goat vs. Fish. Join the Goat vs. Fish discussion group on the Book of Faces to discuss Goat vs. Fish with other goat and fish. And when you are out in the land and the sea, look about you. Look about you. Find one who is lost, who does not know the way, and ask. Simply ask, are you goat or are you fish? Are you goat or fish? Thank you for being part of Goat vs. Fish. I am Goat vs. Fish, the GoatVsFish. And it was written, and it was written.